Our next speaker, Jim Engler from Dow Chemical.
Hi, my name is Jim Engler. I work at Dow Chemical Company. I go by the nickname Strad, so that's why the extra name is in the middle there. I'm presenting on behalf of Becky Reutz, who was actually the leader of the project. I played a smaller role in the overall project. But this is going to be a story in two parts. The first part is how Dow Chemical developed a registration database that ended up in kind of a blocked path. We didn't have a good way to go forward. And the previous stories about the migration and all of the things that go into that are kind of part of what we're going to be talking about. And then the second is how we were able to work with ChemAxon and DeltaSoft to remove that roadblock. Dow is a very large company and has acquired many different companies over the years. And this has led to a variety of chemicals being part of the inventory of what Dow Chemical knows about. There are 6 basic materials that Dow is registering in the Dow Registry database. And there are 2 things that are significant about the particular chemicals that are being registered. The first is that it's a combination of both individual chemicals as well as mixtures of chemicals. So challenge number 1. Challenge number 2 is that not every chemical can be represented by a structure. So we're looking for a registration process that allows us to register both individual chemicals and then things that are multiple component materials. The registry database started as a project to help manage the agricultural chemicals that were part of the Dow Chemical system. Specifically, they were wanting to be able to index the technical reports that were being written, and they wanted to uniquely identify what chemicals were being used and reported on in those reports. Later on, there were other applications where groups like EH&S wanted to be able to use those unique numbers to track the chemicals that they were reporting on. And today, the registry system is providing a service for any part of Dow that wants to have a unique number and help avoid any kind of duplication. This is not a database to hold properties, it's not for managing inventory, it's not for managing batches. It's simply a unique numbering system. If anybody is familiar with the ChemAbstract system, think of chemistry registry database. That's what this is, but Dow was doing it internally. The history of this spans the paper to electronic, and it was interesting seeing Benjamin's slide on the history of the chemical part. This actually precedes the chemical databases, so it goes way back. And like many systems that had a long history, in the early days of computers, the researchers were almost literally bringing their computers in the back door so they could do research. And so they were developing their systems by themselves in the research department. Then as the central services, IT, IS, developed their systems, you now had a partner. And with partnership with IS comes both good and bad. The good part is you have a lot of resources, you have a robust structure. The bad part is it's very hard to make changes, and whenever you want to make change, you have a partner, and it's going to take time and money. This became one of the key drivers for our project. We wanted to make sure that what was just for the application, we could change ourselves and not have any influence or negative effects on the architecture. As I said, go back to the 40s. So we lived that history of going from cards to initial small databases to commercial databases. And eventually, by the 1990s, we had developed 2 systems, 2 parts. One was a commercial database provided by MDL, and the other was an in-house database. Remember I said we had some rather complex requirements. The commercial database wasn't able to handle everything that we wanted to put into it, so we had to have a parallel text database. We were able to use the internal R&D resources to create a bridging interface so that for the people who were using that system, they could see it all at once. However, when it came to the year 2000, everybody was wanting to make sure everything was up to date, nothing's going to get broken when the clock goes 2000. And So there were some changes. One of the changes was a new commercial supplier, and as a result of this, the connection between the two broke. This led Becky to a lot of anxiety because she had been a registrar in the 1990s, left about 1996, and when she came back in 2006, now to lead the group, she looked at the registry database and said, "What the hell did you do to the registry database?" Because now she couldn't get it all in one place. It was smeared into two. The registrars had to go back and forth, and it was very inefficient. So with all of these complexities, we now had, and the other part that we were hearing in Benjamin's talk about, when should you do a migration? We had obsolete technology. We were working with a VB6 database that was no longer supported by anybody in the company. We had strong commitments, strong requirements to get IS even to set up new accounts for us. And anytime we wanted to make changes, it was going to take a lot of time and money. Oops, there we go. We put together a plan for how we wanted to migrate the system. Becky had actually worked with another supplier for almost a year, trying to get them to build us a single system that would give us everything we wanted. That failed. We started over again and trying to get two databases into one place. We wanted to be able to manage single comms as well as the formulations. And the biggest challenge was actually this, trying to get everything into one database. We also wanted to have a single client interface, and very important for Becky, she wanted to be able to have a flexible administration interface so she could manage the accounts and also make changes without having to use IS resources. Working with ChemAxon was, slip of the tongue. Working with ChemAxon was a very good experience. We heard at the beginning the notion of listening ears, and that was the experience we had with ChemAxon and also with DeltaSoft. We had very rapid cycles of listening, solution, testing, going back to listening, solution, testing for each of the problems that we were trying to solve, because we were offering them challenges that they hadn't actually met before. In the end, ChemAxon had to make some significant changes to the cartridge in order to accommodate what we asked for. We wanted to have single molecules and multiple component formulations, and they did that for us. We also worked with DeltaSoft. They were able to provide an interface that gave us everything on one screen and also gave us the flexibility to modify that in any way that we needed to so that we could continue to advance again without having to use the central IS resources. This is what we got. This is sort of like the nirvana for what we were hoping to get. It's a single screen, and it has on it everything that we wanted to have forever, both to do registration and also to do searching. You see there's a structure box if we need that. At the bottom, we have all of the different fields. Most of these fields were not accessible to us for searching before. So now we could search them either singly or in combination. And then in the green box, you see the buttons that the registry team was able to design and add to the form so that they could make their own navigation easier based on their own work requirements. This is an example of the multi-component search screen. In this particular example, in the green box, there's room for searching up to 4 components at a time in one registered material. In this particular case, it's a search for styrene, butadiene, and acrylonitrile. At the bottom, you see the results of that search, and you'll notice that we don't just register that substance once. We register it every time there's a change in the ratio of components. So we're trying to keep track of all of these versions, so we have to be able to identify when things are actually different as well as when they're the same. One of the bonuses in working with ChemAxon was ChemSketch. This is an example of a single molecule that needed to be registered, but there was an unknown point of attachment. Using previous drawing tools that were available, registrars were not able to register this in a clear fashion. So we're able now to represent it in a way that's a lot easier to look at. Another example are coordination compounds. This is something that couldn't even be drawn before. And here's a version of what it looks like if you want to get the same structure from ChemAbstracts. It's much easier to look at the Marvin sketch version. One of the other challenges that we presented to ChemAxon and DeltaSoft was a request that we be able to register polymers based on the monomer components. Again, anyone who has used the Chemical Abstracts Registry system knows that this is a service that is available from the registry system, but we weren't able to do that in our previous system. So what we were able to, what ChemAxon and DeltaSoft were able to deliver to us was a method where we could register each of the individual monomers as a single component and then pick them as components within the final polymer material that was to be registered. And then to uniquely identify that polymer, we weren't using a structure. You see that the structure box is blank. What we did is we used the formulas for each of the monomers. And the monomers are entered into the formula box using the Chemical Abstracts nomenclature rules. This is the bottom half of the screen that I showed you on the previous slide. And you can see that at the bottom we have each of the 4 components in the monomer listed. Unfortunately, we still don't have a live link so that you can click on those and then go back to the individual components if you needed to do more research to find out more about that particular material. This is a snapshot of where we are now. You'll notice that of the materials that are registered, almost half of them are not singular molecules. So we have quite a combination of things all in one single database. The other thing, at the beginning, in the previous system, we had very restricted access to the database. There were only a couple of dozen researchers who were able to access it, and now we have 1,000 users who are able to access the registry database and use it for their research purposes. Our clients have been very happy. I mentioned EH&S. There's a regular connection between the registry database and the EH&S database so that they can make sure that they always have the latest up-to-date information about the chemicals that are important to them. They were very frustrated in the past because their reports did not include structures. They're thrilled now that they do. They're also able to customize the reports themselves. So not only is the registry staff able to take advantage of the flexibility of the system, but our clients are also taking advantage and then creating their own reports so that they can get work in the way that makes the most sense to them. Another group that's been a key user of the system are the technical searchers. These are the people who are asked to find reports or other information about Dow chemicals. And in the past, they had to go to one system, do a search, and then try to get the information out, but never knowing for sure whether it was structures or not what they had. So now, again, one interface, structure search, text search, they can find all of the Dow registry numbers and then take those and export them very easily and then go into our report system and find any reports that have been written describing those chemicals. The registrars have been thrilled with the new system. Things are much faster and easier for them. And Becky has also been quite happy from an administration point of view. She has many different options now for tracking the work, what's being done, setting up users, and she's no longer dependent on her IS colleagues for making changes to the system when she needs to do that. Project isn't done. We're still hoping to get some further improvements. One of them I mentioned before, in the component system, there's no direct link between the individual components and the components listed in a registration and the individual materials, so we'd like to get that enhancement. And the other area would be in improving our ability to register polymers using Marcouche structures, both for registering and for searching. I also, for the clients, one of the things that is most important is to be able to use the unique registry numbers and search for those in our report system. And again, referring back to ChemAbstracts, which is sort of my model of how this would work best, you can search in the registry system, push on a button, and now you get all of the reports back from the system. We still don't have that connectivity, and that's something we'd like to build in. We're also looking forward to developing, working with an ELN in our, internally, developing an ELN system for our researchers, and we'd like to find ways that we could connect the registry system so that researchers could both find about materials that have already been created before they go through the work of doing that research, as well as providing information about their own work into the registry system. So we had a roadblock, and we were able to break through it. And we have a robust cartridge that's giving us the ability to handle a wide variety of chemicals, and we are able to use a wide variety of drawing structures, drawing packages, so we're not tied just to Marvin Sketch. ChemAxon proved to be good listeners, and with all of that, we now have a system that is much better than what we had before and is setting us up for some future work that will greatly enhance what we've already done. Thank yous. We got a lot of help from the folks at ChemAxon and DeltaSoft. Dow has a very powerful project management team that was able to help us get the project into production. Hopefully that'll be the last time we have to use them for a long time. And the registry team was key in both specifying what needed to be done and making sure that they got exactly what we want. If you would like to contact Becky, she's the expert, so I'm willing to take questions, but no guarantee that I'll be able to answer the details. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Other than the ELN that you had on your to-do list, so there are other systems now, not users, but systems with which the registrar communicates or which have some interface with the registration system?
I mentioned the EH&S system. Yeah. So there is, in fact, a feed process where there is a query that's run on an overnight basis to pull out. So within the registry system, the EH&S chemicals that are of interest to that group are tagged with a special code. And so anytime there's a change on those chemicals, either a new name or a new synonym or anything like that, that information is flagged as, oh, there's new information here for this category. And so the search is run, those new things are identified and then pushed over into the H&S system.
So is that done at an abstract level, like a structure type search, or is that just tags on following those individual entities?
It's just the tags.
Okay.
So in other words, this is something changed, it's either new or changed, and it's in this category of chemicals, therefore push it into the new system.
It's not actually a question, but I appreciate this is a ChemAxon user group meeting, and therefore you very much profiled the ChemAxon work in the project. But I did want to just give Mike DiPolito and his team their full credit, because I think they do more than half the work, actually. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone realized that this is really a partnership with Mike DiPolito and the DeltaSoft team. But I mean, I thank you for highlighting the ChemAxon parts, but I just wanted everyone to know that you need to talk to Mike as well. Okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you very much.